This is the First Gen Pilot Podcast, episode 17, starts now. What's going on, aviators? My name is Abraham and I am your host. Are you a pilot or someone who's wanting to become a pilot? Then this is the podcast for you, where I interview pilots from all over the world who are currently in the industry or currently pursuing their dreams. You learn from their experiences firsthand how they did things and how they're getting through flight training or how they got through flight training to ending up as airline pilots and all other aviation jobs out there. Then stay tuned, hit that follow button, and leave a review if you enjoy this episode. Today's episode, we have Captain Joe. Joe is one of the biggest aviation influencers out there with over 1.5 million subscribers on YouTube and over 500,000 on Instagram. Chances are you've seen one of his videos out there and they're so inspiring. He's such an inspiring person. It was so great having him on the podcast. In this episode, we talk about how he got into aviation and his journey. We also talk about some of the things that people go through when they're doing their flight training in Europe. With that, we talk about the new course that Captain Joe just released. It's so helpful. It helps anybody out there who's trying to get into aviation, where it walks you through all the steps that you got to go through all the way to becoming an airline pilot and getting all your licenses. Make sure you check out this course. The link will be down in the show notes of this podcast. And aviators, if you enjoy this episode, don't forget to leave a review and follow the podcast on any of the platforms that you're listening to this on. Also, you can source some support by getting the first generation merchandise down below in the link of this podcast. Without further ado, here's Captain Joe.
Hi everyone, this is Captain Joe, but most people know me on social media as Captain Joe. I am aged. I'm just realizing I'm 39 years old, and I've been in the aviation industry for the last 15 years, and I'm currently on the Boeing 747 flying for a freighter company, and I'm super happy. That's my intro.
Captain Joe, welcome to the First Gen Pilot Podcast, and I really appreciate you being here today, man.
Thanks for the invite. Really appreciate it being here too.
Yeah, man, it's kind of crazy, man. I've been doing a lot of these, like Europe and like Africa, all over the world, and like the timing is always crazy because I know we kind of have to figure out like what time can we do this because it's early morning for me and it's like late night over there.
Yeah, but the best way is always to go in UTC time. You know,
okay.
I love to plan things in UTC because every pilot knows UTC time, so that's the point. So that's
exactly. Yeah, I figured that one out. Too late. Yeah. All right. Yeah. And this first question I'd like to ask is, how did you get into aviation?
How did I get into aviation? That is a good question. So I got in it relatively early, in the sense that I think I was like 5-6 years old. My godfather used to be an air traffic controller at Heathrow Airport, and I was a tiny boy, and he took me to work, and I got to experience what it's like to, see the operations in Heathrow Tower. And at the end of his shift, he took me to the end of the runway, and we could see Concorde take off. And if you're 5-6 years old and you have Concorde like literally 100 meters away from you taking off, that will give you such an incredible buzz for the rest of your life. So that was how I kind of got into it, or sparked my sort of love for aviation, seeing Concorde, seeing 747-200s at the time, and yeah, since then I've been super hooked. I mean, especially because I spent a lot of time in my childhood in the UK, and there's all sorts of aviation related museums that we went to on weekends, and it's sort of the buzz just keep growing and growing, and I never got rid of it, and I still go to these museums nowadays, and I still, especially for the YouTube channel, do recordings for it, and just love it. Going back into the history and checking out these old planes is a good
yeah, definitely, man. It looks like you were kind of in love with aviation from the jump. As soon as you're kind of going into the air traffic control and everything.
You could say that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so like the flying portion of it. So was there anybody in the flying industry for you?
Yeah, not really. So my parents are not aviators. They love to fly, but they don't. That's not their profession. They used to be dentists. But a friend of theirs had a Christian Eagle, which is a small little biplane.
Okay.
And during one of those evenings, like sunset scenery, it was just perfect. And he asked me if I quickly wanted to join on a traffic pattern around, or just a bit of pottering around the airfield. I said, yeah, why not? So the thing is with the Christian Eagle, the passenger sits in the front seat and the pilot sits in the back seat. So you have, as the passenger, this unobstructed view, into the sky. And
Yeah.
it was just perfect setting with the sunset, super calm. There was no turbulence whatsoever. And relatively right after takeoff, this friend of ours said, hey, you want to take control? And it's just like a wooden stick, like a broomstick.
Yeah.
And then I just sort of, did a couple of, I actually did a roll as well. And we did a couple of circles. And it was, from that moment on, when you have that feeling of controlling an aircraft, from that point on, I was just so hooked, and I couldn't think of anything else, and I wanted to become a pilot. So that was the spark to it all. The stuff before was like growing love for aviation, but then really hitting the spark was flying that little plane.
Yeah, definitely, man. Like the first,
Yeah.
I still remember the first time I touched the controls, and like there's nothing coming close to that. It's just amazing.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, and then like so going by your flight training, how does one go by
Mhm.
in Europe, and what does it look like getting into aviation and going to become a pilot?
Yeah, it's so funny. A lot of people actually think that I did my training in Europe, but I didn't.
Okay.
I did most of my training in the States. I did like 90% of my training, flying wise, in America. I did it all in Vero Beach at Flight Safety.
Okay.
So I did all the theory part in Germany.
Mhm.
I passed all the theoretical exams, and then like my entire course, we then went over to the States.
Yeah.
And then we enrolled this program. We just like flying every single day, and it was so much fun. Especially I think that the States just has really cool instructors who are very high on motivation. They truly really want to keep your motivation high, and keep you disciplined and focused on what you're doing.
Mhm.
And sure, we had bad days as well, but then they immediately took us under their wing, so to speak, and then said, "Look, everything's fine. We'll just do a retraining here and there." And it was really really enjoyable, and I kind of missed that time. I have been back to that flight school a couple of times in the last couple of years, and it was just so great to see how much it evolved. There's still one aircraft is still there that I used to train on 15 years ago,
Wow.
so that was pretty fun to see. But other than that, that was I really enjoyed my flight training. I think a lot of people struggle with it because it is a lot,
Mhm.
but I had a great time doing my flight training.
Yeah, definitely. And then so like you mentioned so like the exams that you got to take before you go on to these flight training. So what is that like? Cuz I
Mhm.
don't think we have any of this like pre-examination over here.
Yeah, it's just basically speaking, it's just sort of exams to check your math knowledge, your physics knowledge, and your English knowledge.
Okay.
They can be a bit tricky, but in general, I think they were all passable. And I was, there's a couple of sort of multitasking stuff as well, but not too difficult compared to the airline assessments.
Okay.
That's where where it's much tougher. But
Yeah.
for flight schools, it was passable. I think if you practice a little bit beforehand, it was fine. Yeah, I didn't have no problems with that really.
Okay, yeah, definitely. All right. And then so like now you got your flight training done in the States or
Yeah.
most of it. So where do you go by then over there then?
Yeah. So the thing was that my crew partner,
Okay.
she immediately got into the airlines. Literally, she did her final check ride, and I think a week later she got hired with Air Berlin, which was a passenger airline that sadly doesn't exist anymore.
Okay.
And I was a little bit too late to apply, and then they closed their doors, and I couldn't move to the airlines. So what I did was that I went over to a skydiving company, and that's a really funny story because I was doing my single engine piston land check ride at this tiny little airport close to where my parents live,
Uh-huh.
and we do the check, we debrief in this little restaurant, and as we are sitting at the table, I can hear this guy next to me speaking about, oh my God, I need a pilot for the summer. It's going to be so crazy. We've got so many skydivers coming. I don't know how to deal with it. And
Yeah.
I overhear this conversation and I literally just got up and I
Yeah.
said to him, look, mate, I have just finished my training. I'll be more than happy to jump onto your plane. You don't even have to pay me for it. I just
I'll do
need a
it for
job
free.
to gain some hours. Yeah, I literally do it. I'll fly for food, so to speak. And yeah, that's how I got my first job. So I flew the Pilatus Porter, which is quite a unique aircraft to fly,
Okay.
especially when you come from training,
Yeah.
from like a little Cessna or whatever, or Piper. And then what has a piper might have 120 horsepower up to like a 700 horsepower turbine engine.
Wow.
That was quite the transition.
Oh yeah.
But and then I flew skydivers for an entire year. And then literally on the last day, now this is really important for anybody who is wanting to find a job. This is so crucial.
Uh-huh.
I There was one skydiver on the last day. We had like this sort of how should you call it, last jump of the season, so to speak. So there was tons of people there.
Yeah.
And one skydiver was on every single flight, and he was like monitoring me through the entire day. And he gave me sort of the chills. It was really awkward. But long story short, we have a barbecue in the evening, and then he comes over and he says, "Hey, by the way, Joe, I am the chief pilot for an executive company in Germany,
Yeah.
and I've been monitoring you all day, checking your flying skills, and you seem to be doing really well. Would you be interested in flying for us for the executive company?" And without me even searching for a job, I got a job offered, which was amazing. So I then transitioned from the porter to a Beach King Air, and then I was on a King Air for another year roughly, and then at that point, my crew partner has been with the airlines for 2 years already, and she kind of knew flight ops. She kind of knew, the assessment, or the people who do the hiring, and she figured out that they are going to be hiring very soon. And she told me, "Joe, you need to send your application now. It's not an open position yet, but they will open very soon." So I sent my application, and literally a month later, they replied and said, "Hey, Joe, super happy to invite you to an assessment." I went into the assessment. I passed the assessment. And now this is another fun story. As I am in the assessment, the guy who's sitting opposite of me is the chief pilot so they had a collaboration between Air Berlin and Bel Air, which is a company in Switzerland. And that chief pilot who sat opposite of me was a skydiver who used to fly with me, and he immediately recognized me. And he said, "Hey, Joe, what the hell are you doing here? So good to see you. How's the flight, the skydiving operation going?" So there was no questions asked about 8BL theory or something. So we were just having a casual conversation, and then I was hired on the spot. So, and that was then my transition into the airlines. And I had roughly maybe 400 hours, 500 hours roughly, and total time, which is not a lot. But in Europe, that's still possible. And then I was with Air Berlin for 7 to 8 years. Yeah. And there's another fun story. So my transition to the cargo airline was also just before the company, or like 2 years before the company went bankrupt. This cargo airline I work for now was offering that we could fly for them for 2 years and then go back to the passenger, or to Air Berlin, but we would get some long haul experience. And I said, "This is so cool. I'm going to apply for this job." So I applied for that job, and Air Berlin, they handed us out to that company for 2 years because we had too many pilots and they had too little pilots. So I went through the application process. All was great. As I'm literally on my way for the type rating, my company calls me up and says, "Hey, Joe, we're super sorry. We've let too many pilots go. We need you to stay with us." I said, "Oh my gosh, what a nightmare." So I stayed with the company. I flew until the day the company went bankrupt. I was the second to last pilot, or the last flight that I commenced. And then, as I am driving from the airplane to the crew room, my phone rings, and it's a Luxembourgish phone number from this company saying, "Hey, Joe, we're super sad about the bankruptcy of your company, blah, blah, blah. Are you interested in flying for us?" What is going on? So literally a day later, I was in the assessment. I had one more flying to do in the simulator, and then I got the job on the 747. So in all fairness, if I think about it, I've technically only applied once in my entire life. Not to brag, but it's just, if you have that, once you're in, you have that little network, and you just get to know people, you speak to people. And so that's what I'm recommending to everybody who's listening. Create that network, not necessarily be an influencer. I mean, just speak to people at airports, speak to people who have their own little plane. They always seek pilots, stuff like that. So don't just hide behind your computer and send out online applications. There's faster ways of finding a job.
Yeah, definitely, man. Like
That's
networking is a huge thing when it comes to aviation.
It's huge.
And
Yeah,
it's such
it's
a small
huge. Yeah,
network. Like if you know somebody, they know someone that knows you. It's like it's
yeah,
just a small world, and it's so
very
great
true,
knowing
very true.
people.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely. And then so let's move on to like funding your training. So what was that like?
yeah. So training back then, if I think about it, was significantly cheaper than it was today.
Okay.
I remember that it was exactly 60 grand for my entire training,
Okay.
so euros. I think nowadays we're nearly up to 100, 110, 120,000 euros. It's just gotten completely out of hand.
Yeah.
And I'll be very straightforward. My parents were supporting that. I had some money myself that I put into the training,
Hmm.
but my dad was very, very strict. He said, if once you have a job, I am taking 1,000 euros out of your bank account no matter what. And as the starting salary, for example, flying skydivers is very, very low. Okay, I mean you're just making about 1 grand,
Yeah.
but that was sort of a contract I had to sign with my dad.
Hmm.
And so for the first sort of 2 to 3 years, I was like Airbnb my apartment out. I was like selling all my stuff on eBay. I was really struggling on like staying afloat.
Yeah.
But that was incredibly crucial for me because it really taught me a lesson from my dad, more or less. And within 5 years, my entire the funding was all paid off to my parents, and that was that. So I got
Yeah.
out of my debt with my dad, and I'm sure he would have loved to put an interest rate on it, but he didn't. That was the best way for me, and yeah. So I mean, nowadays, I mean, 120,000. That's a lot of money, and I really don't know how people do it, but yeah, that's the world we live in, I say.
Yeah, definitely, man. It's so
Yeah,
expensive getting into aviation, but then
it's getting really
it's so
expensive.
worth
Yeah.
it. Like you probably can say like 100 times, like it's a worth it career that you can go in.
For me, I think I couldn't do anything else because I have such a strong love and passion for it. So I have a really cool schedule flying wise. I fly 14 days and I have 14 days off. It's sort of this package. Scheduling is cool about it because I don't live where I'm based at.
Hmm.
I live like a 5 hour car ride away. So they plan that for me that I can commute easily.
Yeah.
And it's 14 days. I go flying on like the 12th day. I'm really getting sick of it. I
Yeah.
kind of, I just want to go home. But after being home for 14 days, I am so excited to go flying again. So
Yeah.
it's this perfect balance. It's
Definitely,
fortunate.
yeah. Yeah, and so like I know this the airlines in Europe and like in the other countries they do cadetship where they take you and then they train you and get you to their airlines. How does that work?
Yeah, yeah. There are sadly, it's less and less airlines that do that. I just recently, funny enough, heard of an airline opening up again and bringing back the App Initio program, where you literally, a pedestrian, and they'll take you under the wing and they'll take you all the way up to a 737 or whatever.
Okay.
And they opened up, I think, for 2 days, and they had like, I think, 4,000 applications. It was
Wow.
absolutely insane because it's so rare. They would have paid for the training.
Yep.
I think they would have paid like 60 or 70% of it. So sadly, that is not the case as much as it used to be, but I'm pretty sure with all this pilot shortage, this is going to come back because they can't expect future pilots to pay for everything themselves, especially type ratings. Whatever you do never go to an airline where you have to pay for your own type rating. That is like the worst idea.
Yeah.
So from my perspective, this will continue maybe for a couple of more years, but at some point we'll have too little pilots, and then the airlines have to do an incredible rethink and really have to bring back the Ab Initio program, where you know, you do your assessment and then they take you into flight school.
Hmm.
This could be someone else doing the flight school. It doesn't necessarily need to be the airline that's doing the training for you, but then you do a conversion course into or the first type rating. And I think that's it's a matter of time when this is coming back. So I'm
Yep.
hopeful that it's coming back in the next couple of years.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely helps out a lot of people that
Yeah,
need the
it
funding.
does. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
All right. And then so like next question I have is have you had any scary experiences throughout your flight training?
During my flight training, yes, I had one sketchy situation once where I don't know what they're called. You do these landings where like pull the engine on idle, and then you sort of simulate an engine failure, and then you just sort of circle to the runway.
Yep.
I think they're called
Pa-
spot landings or
okay,
something.
we call them power off on 80s. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Power
We'll
off.
go.
Like, whatever. So
Yeah.
we'll go with that. So I had to do that in my traffic pattern. I was a private pilot. I just had my private pilot license.
Okay.
So I had to practice that or doing my private pilot training. And I've been doing that like 5 or 6 times. And there
Hmm.
was other planes within the traffic pattern, and they got really upset because I was like blocking the runway. I was always like the emergency case, and I got I was always the first to land. So they
Yeah.
were like pretty sick about it. So at some point during like my fifth landing or whatever,
Hmm.
someone there was so much traffic in the traffic pattern that the ATC was completely blocked. They were all chatting along, and I
Hmm.
got severely distracted because there was a plane on the runway, there was a plane ahead of me, and I was just turning final, and then I forgot to monitor speed. I
Okay.
mean, I had maybe 25 hours in. I was really a low hour pilot,
Yeah.
and my flight instructor saw from the outside that the plane was buffeting, and I was just before a stall, and I was at super low altitude. I was like at 800 feet or something. And yeah, he said, go around, go around, go around. And I just pushed it down and, full throttle, and I got out of it. That was a scary situation because I could feel her like buffeting. And then,
Yeah.
just prior to the stall, one of the wings just wanted to drop off.
Uh-huh.
So that was sketchy. Other than that, training wise, nope, that's the only one I think I've had that was sketchy. Other than that, no. Oh, I once in IMC, that was actually doing a pre-check ride. I remember I went into full IMC,
Okay.
and we were banking at a 45-degree angle and I didn't feel it. I said, "Oh, we're going straight level," and then my instructor
Wow.
said, "You want to check your instruments?" And I was like this. That was really bad. So
Yeah.
yet again, it goes to show, just trust your don't trust your gut, trust your instruments.
No.
That's
Yeah.
that's the biggest learning I got out of it.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
I remember when I was doing my instrument flight training too. My first time in IMC, we were doing
Hmm.
an approach, so we were turning the final like that last leg
Hmm.
to a final. And I
Yeah.
remember was supposed to do a turn, but I wasn't doing the turn. I was just turning my body, and my instructor was like, "Okay, give me that
Yeah.
turn." But I was like, "I'm
Okay.
doing the turn," but I look at my hands. I'm not even moving them. It's kind of
No, move.
it's crazy.
It's yeah. The sensation your body
Yeah.
is experiencing during flight, especially during IMC, it is out of. It's so crazy. Especially you have to overcome
Hmm.
that feeling, that sensation, because you think you're in a right turn, but you're in a full left turn,
Yeah.
and then your muscles, your arms have to go in the other direction. It's so weird to do, but yeah, trust your instruments.
Yeah. Definitely, I agree.
Yeah.
All right, and then so if you were to go back and redo your whole journey
Mhm.
again, what are some things that you
Mhm.
do the same and some things that you do differently?
Speaking of the flight training, um, the okay, I think what I would have wanted to do back then is purely to prepare.
Hmm.
I had a general idea of what a CPL, an IFR, and a PPL was,
Hmm.
but besides that, my knowledge of aviation or what I'm going to expect during my training was zero to nothing. Really, I had no idea what I'm going to be expecting in training. So for me, this brings me nicely to my course that I have. So I took the time because I'm getting literally thousands of emails of people asking me on how to become a pilot.
Yeah.
And I can't answer all these emails. So I thought to myself, okay, I'm going to take 6 months out of my time
Hmm.
and I'm going to create an online course, a video online course on how to become a pilot. Literally a step by step from pedestrian all the way up to the airline cockpit. What is a PPL? What is a CPL, IFR, ATPL? We have all sorts of other licenses in Europe that you have to take after your ATPL
Hmm.
or ATP. Then stuff how to prepare, how to better your English. What can I do during school? How can I, already start preparing for flight school whilst I'm still in school? Model airplane flying, glider flying, all sorts of things, all in this course. And once you have gone through that course, you will not get ripped off by the flight schools. You will know how to choose the right flight school that is suited best for you. And that was incredibly important to me because if you think about it, a flight school is a business, right? They are there to make money, and they are
Yep.
making a lot of money because you are giving them a lot of money.
Yeah.
And you are this naive little kid who walks up and then you see all these fancy, shiny planes. And then, oh, yes, this is all great. And, airline cockpit posters everywhere. And said, this is the best flight school to go to. But
Hmm.
they are just interested in making money off of you. So there are ways on how to find the right flight school. And that's all in the course. And so that course just is launching or has been launched. And I'm really excited to see the feedback from the people. But I personally believe if I would have had something like that back then, that would have saved me tons of money, tons of time, and yeah, just choosing the. I mean, not that I wasn't happy with my flight school. My flight school was great, but I'm just saying I could have prepared far much more
Yep,
if I would have had
just the
something like
process.
that.
Yeah, I agree with you,
Just the
Joe.
process, yeah.
Yep.
Mhm.
Like I also struggled getting into aviation, hence why I have the podcast and like my Instagram and everything. But
Mhm.
I think something like that would have definitely took me to a different level where I was so prepared. And having something
Yeah,
like that is definitely huge. And I'll leave the link in the down in the show notes and
I appreciate you.
definitely check
Yeah,
that out.
I think an important note here is that in this course, I obviously mention a lot of abbreviations because pilots just speak
There's
with abbreviations,
there's a
and I
ton.
hate that. I personally think it makes it even worse because until today, I still have abbreviations that I'm struggling with. Just recently, I had one in a note town. I had to go into Google to Google. It was so difficult to find. But what I'm trying to say is that in this course, I am using abbreviations, but as soon as I say one, the translation or the what it actually stands for will pop out on the screen. So you don't
Yep.
have to worry about anything. You're just sitting there, you're getting everything is being talked to, and then you just have to listen. And whenever there's an abbreviation, I will highlight
Yeah,
it.
definitely. Man. There's
Yeah.
so many that I can't. I think
Yes.
every day I'm learning a new one here.
I there's also download material. So there's ton. It's like I think it's like 80 pages of download material that you can print out,
Okay.
and one of them is I think there's a thousand abbreviations that are very common. So you can learn them like vocabulary,
Hmm.
and then once you go into flight school, you can't be fooled by one of those flight school executives who's trying to you know talk you through some abbreviations and you have no idea what he's talking about. But you will know then because you've practiced.
Yeah, definitely. You'll definitely become a
Yeah,
pro.
good.
All right. And then also, have you had any failures throughout your flying career? And has those affected you getting a job?
No, I've had no failures in terms of check rides, theoretical exam.
Okay.
That was all flawless. I'm really really happy. But now this is also a really interesting story for anybody who's wanting to start out with their social media influencer pilot program or whatever.
Yeah.
Just be very very careful because when I lost my job due to the bankruptcy of the passenger airline,
Hmm.
I was yes, okay. I was hired with this cargo company that I fly for now, but obviously during that time, I had a 6 month period where I was without a job. I had to wait for my type rating to start.
Hmm.
I did go to other airlines and apply, just seeking, just checking what there is. And because a lot of people knew me already as Captain Joe,
Hmm.
that was it didn't play so well with them. They knew about me. Social media back then was completely different. I mean, that's again 7 years ago or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
It had a different impact. Nowadays, it might have changed a little bit, but just be super, super careful because I got rejected or not accepted to 3 airlines in total because they said, "Hey, look, you're a great pilot. You've done your sim check, all is great, super cool, but we don't like this Instagram, YouTube stuff. That's not for us. We're a very conservative airline, and we don't want this." And that didn't. Okay, they never really said that, but it was so obvious that that
Yeah.
was the reason. So yes, I have failed airline assessments because of that. So I'm just trying to advise everybody who be careful. Airlines will check your social medias. If you do it, just do a super professional job about it. Don't have pictures of you being drunk with your mate somewhere. That could cause some funny or interesting questions during your assessment. So just be careful about that.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. You always have to keep that professionalism when you're a pilot.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. And then this question I like to ask. So, what's your end goal with flying? So, I know you're flying a 747, which is my favorite aircraft
Yeah.
to fly someday, if they don't
You'll
go out.
be, Ibrahim, you'll be surprised. She is, this is so bad to say, but it is such an easy plane to fly. She is so stable in the air. It is, I just, I'm so excited and thrilled again to go flying it. She handles so well. She's very forgiving.
Yeah,
And I love to play with just pitch and power. Because I came from the Airbus, you didn't have any manual trim, so you just set the bird on the 3 degree, and then you
yeah.
just fly down an ILS without even touching the controls. And with the 7.4, you set a pitch, you set a power, and then she'll just do the rest. It's just so much fun to fly.
Wow.
But speaking of my career, um, now this is I obviously want to fly until the end of until I'm 65
Mhm.
with CargoLux, because that's just, I love that company. We're having so much fun, and that plane, I will get another type rating on the 777 at some point, because we're very, very slowly phasing out the 7.4.
Yeah.
But in terms of the planes I would love to fly, all right, if anybody offers me to fly a Spitfire, I am there. I will take a month off just to get me ready to fly a Spitfire. That is my ultimate dream to
Yeah.
airplane to fly. Um, the Airbus A350 is super beautiful. I would love to have a simulator session there, just to do a couple of traffic patterns. I don't need to fly the real plane. I'm happy to fly the sim.
Yeah.
And I do want to do a bit of sort of backcountry flying, smaller planes again. Flying into Utah, and or doing so, or maybe get my seaplane rating. That's something that's a bit of on the horizon.
Yeah.
And to finalize it all, the helicopter license would also be pretty cool, because helicopter flying is completely something else than flying fixed wing.
Yeah.
So this is something I've looked into a little bit, and maybe at some point, if I have the time, I would try and get my helicopter license. But it's just a PPL, just private pilot. That's it.
Nothing crazy.
No, nothing great. I don't need an IFR. I mean, generally helicopters don't really fly in IFR.
Yeah.
But yeah. So.
Yeah, the helicopters are great. I think people are kind of trying to do both right now. I mean, I had Catherine Moloney on here. She does both.
Okay.
And also had another guy in the military also does. He's doing his helicopter, but he's looking to do his fixed wing stuff. So it's kind of the same with both worlds. It's great.
I have a very, very good friend of mine who is a rescue helicopter pilot, and on the weekends he flies fixed wing. So he gets the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
But like flying a rescue helicopter pilot, like an Airbus helicopter, wow,
those are great.
Absolutely amazing. It's really good, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so like flight training, it can be hard, and as you know, so how did you stay motivated throughout your flight training career?
That's a very often asked question, and I, funny enough, put an entire segment into my online course on how to stay motivated, because it's a huge issue with flight students. And one of the key things that I can give away is that, yes, I had not necessarily lacking in motivation. I was just overwhelmed. I was just like so done. I couldn't see airplanes anymore. I didn't want to talk about airplanes anymore. I was like, give me a break.
Yeah.
So what I would do back then during training, because we were in Florida, we just went golfing. I said, okay, this is it. So we've got 3 days off. We'll just, I don't want to talk about planes, nothing. Just we'll go to a golf course. We'll hit a couple of balls. We went to Daytona once to see a NASCAR race. That was also pretty cool. So just to get your mind off flying, just take a reset and then get back into it. And I think that helps a lot. And what I've put into my course, there's a movie list of the 30 best aviation related movies. And if you spread that out and watch one every 2 weeks, you've got a full year, more or less, a little bit more than a year of great aviation movies. Because if you have a dip of motivation every 2 weeks, you can watch an aviation movie and then get it back up again. So it's like, but this, I think at the end of the day, maybe even connecting with guys on Instagram who do great flying, who put out great content, just have a chat with them, just get someone who boosts up your motivation again. You're not by yourself. The aviation community is huge. And take advantage of it and just speak to people that you have problems. Maybe your motivation is also lacking because you are, I don't know, struggling with flying an NDB approach or whatever. Okay, then meet up with a friend, get your Microsoft Flight Simulator out, and just hustle and hustle and hustle all night long
Yeah.
until you've nailed it on the Microsoft Flight Sim or any other sim, and then you go back into your training. I think, but you don't have to tackle this by yourself. Just
Hmm.
ask your friend who's also a pilot,
Yep.
and then don't deal with your problems by yourself, because that is very, I should say, disheartening. A lot of people then even get into that thought, oh, I'm going to quit. Ugh, this is not for me. I'm not
Yeah.
good enough. Especially, I'm not good enough. That will come around quick.
Yeah.
So just ask a friend and help him, and then you should be fine.
Yeah, exactly. Always asking for help is never. It's never like too hard. You just go ask for
Yeah,
help, and
it's not
always gonna
correct.
help you out. Yeah. All right. And then so last. This question is
Mm-hmm.
what tips do you have for someone who's getting into aviation
Mm-hmm.
or already pursuing their dreams?
Mm-hmm. For me, besides now me putting out this preparation course and helping people to get an absolute overview of what they can expect during flight training, that is my first tip, to get that course. But secondly, I would really immerse yourself. Really, take a little practice flight at your local flight school. Just, they'll take you out. You can get the hands off the controls a little bit, fly around a little bit.
Yep.
Model airplane flying, that was huge for me as a kid. That really inspired me as well. I learned so much about airplanes back then. Glider flying, super cheap, great affordable. You were always in a team of people, sort of stuff like that. And then once you are making that decision that you want to go into the aviation industry, you need to show 100% commitment. You have to stick with it, because if you are lacking at some, if you're just like, okay, I'm going to wing it and I'm just going to do a little bit here and do a little bit there, that is going to catch up at some point in your career. So you really have to stay dedicated and motivated to do it, because that's what I think those are sort of the key things. And don't brag about it. Be humble. I don't like
Yeah.
people who are. I've met so many people who are telling me all these great stories, how great they fly, and then I actually get to fly with them, and their flying skills are really not up to par. And I said, look, mate, why not talk less and practice more?
Right.
And be humble about becoming a pilot. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, definitely. It could get so easily to just talk about yourself, and like
Yes.
staying humble is definitely
Yeah.
a big thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
All right. Those were such great tips. And then, so last question I have here is your social media. How did you get, or what was the inspiration behind it? I know we kind of talked about it a little bit, but how did that get started? This whole thing
This
with
is
you, millions of followers.
the funniest story. Is it's actually my dad. It's not even me. So my dad, um, I was during the passenger airline I flew. I had a lot of time off. We were flying like 5 days, 5 days off, sort of that kind of schedule. And
Hmm.
I always wanted to do something with my time. I said 5 days sitting in front of a television watching Netflix is not my kind of deal. I just don't.
Yeah.
It's not brings me nowhere. So by coincidence, my dad called me whilst I was at work, and he was reading a newspaper article, and he didn't understand what the journalist was trying to bring across. It was about an airplane accident, and it was about the pitot
Okay.
tube, and he didn't even translate what a pitot tube is, this journalist. So I took the liberty on putting my dad on FaceTime, and we walked around the aircraft, and I pointed out to him, that's the pitot tube. I literally did an outside check with my dad on the phone, and he loved
Okay.
it. He thought it was absolutely amazing. So a couple of weeks later, I'm at my parents' house, and he says, hey, look, I think that your passengers could absolutely benefit from the information that you've given me during this FaceTime call. Why don't you start a YouTube channel? Literally, those were the words my dad said. So I said, oh, yeah, maybe not a bad idea. So I put out I said, okay, we'll put out a video on the sterile cockpit. Completely boring topic. I think it took me
Yeah.
like 2 days to get the video done. I uploaded it. It got, I think, 10,000 views in like 2 or 3 weeks. So it was, I just didn't see the benefit in it. It was just too much work. And I said, okay, I'll do one more video and then we'll see how it goes. So I put one more
Okay.
video out, and it was about the reverse thrust. So reverse thrust is something that a passenger can see from their window. That
Hmm.
video I think in 2 days had over 1 million views. So it
Wow.
completely went off
Just
the
took
rails.
off.
And I said, aha, I'm onto something. So when you go
Yeah.
back into my channel, the first 20 videos that you see are all from a visual perspective of a passenger, the stuff that a passenger can see. So I just focused all on that. And I think after the first 20 videos, I had nearly 250,000 followers. It just went
Wow.
because I was one of the first who started it,
Yeah.
and then it just picked up after that. And since then it's been so much fun because the feedback was great from the passengers. Then I've done all the passenger topics, and now I've sort of transitioned more to do flight school and flight student related topics because I struggled at flight school, and why not help flight students now? And for me, the biggest appreciation or biggest compliment is when a flight student takes a picture in his classroom, the instructor is at his desk or whatever, and on this TV screen you
Yeah.
see my video showing. That just that pushes my motivation for the next 10 videos. It's just that I really, really appreciate that.
Yeah, man,
Yeah,
definitely.
so that's how far I've come. Yeah.
Yeah, man. It sounds like your dad was such a good inspiration for you to start your YouTube video, and it's doing such an amazing thing, helping out others
Yeah.
and like motivating a ton of other people, including myself. I watch your videos on Instagram or
Thank
on
you, man.
YouTube. It's
Appreciate
like, did you
it.
know? And then it's like you
Oh
saying
yeah,
stuff. It's
yeah.
like,
That,
I love those
those are
videos,
also
man.
they were a lot of fun. They
Yeah,
were fun, those videos.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I
Yeah.
love those
So
videos.
and I learn a lot from I mean, I am not knowledgeable in everything in aviation, so I have to go back into the books as well, and
Hmm.
it keeps me in the books, and I enjoy that, doing a bit of
Yeah.
research. Just recently, when there was this 757 FedEx incident,
Hmm.
I have no idea of the hydraulic system of a 757. Why would I? I don't fly that plane.
No.
But
Yeah.
it forces me to go into into YouTube or into the books of. I found a checklist, and I found the hydraulic schematic of a 757 and just worked it out myself.
Yeah.
So this is the drive to do it. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, man, it's so great.
Thanks.
All right, and then so we're gonna end this with a would you rather game. So I'll give you a couple options, and then you pick one from that.
Okay, sounds good. All right,
All
let's do
right.
it.
So the first one is: would you rather fly general aviation or commercial?
Uh, General aviation. Just because it's low and slow. I just
Yeah,
like to fly low and slow.
nothing can
Yeah.
beat general aviation. I'll tell you that.
No.
All right. So then, would you rather fly over beaches or mountains?
uh, Beaches. Beaches. Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. Yeah.
Mountains can be quite tough. You get a mountain wave, that would be
Not
quite
fun.
turbulent on the mountains. Yeah, beaches are nice and calm. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And then, so would you rather fly high wing or low wing?
Oh, definitely high wing
Okay.
because you can see more.
Yeah.
Low wing is half of the view is blocked because of the wing.
Yeah, you get ripped off from the views.
Yeah, high wing is good.
Yeah. All right. And then, so would you rather fly Airbus or Boeing? It's a tough
Spitfire.
one.
Actually, Spitfire.
A
To
third
be
option.
fair, the third option. To be fair, I because I've flown both,
Mhm.
and both have their advantages and disadvantages, and I couldn't really say that either one of them is better. They are both great. I think I just want to
Yeah.
leave it at that. At the moment, the 747 is my absolute dream. I'm loving it, so maybe I keep Boeing for now. But the
Okay.
Airbus is a fantastic plane. That's a really good
All
plane.
right. Yeah, we'll go with that. All right. So the last one is: would you rather fly IFR or VFR?
VFR. I need to see stuff. I'm when I'm in the sim, I'm in IFR all the time, and I hate it.
Yeah.
I want to actually see stuff. So no, VFR is it's a little bit maybe a little bit more challenging. You've got more work to do because
Yeah.
IFR is literally just listening to the controller and flying airways. But VFR is fun. That's why.
It's amazing. Yeah, just look. I mean, you go to fly wanting to see outside. Like
Correct.
not flying the clouds.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, man, that was it for this episode. Thank you so much
Cool.
for coming on and
This
helping
is fun.
inspire others. Yeah, it's so
I
good
hope.
having you on.
I really hope it does. I mean, I am always open for questions as well. Just contact me on Instagram. I'll be more than happy to help you out. I mean, I'm trying to keep up with the questions that are coming in,
Yeah.
but also just another little side note to the course. In the course, we have big Zoom meetups where everyone who has bought the course once a month we will all meet in a massive Zoom call, and then everybody can just hit out their questions, and then I'll try and answer them as best as possible. I mean, these calls are going to be like 2 to 3 hours long just to cope with all the questions. But
Yeah.
I think that's just the best way of getting back to the community, because they have bought the course and I am entitled to answer their questions. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for that.
Yeah,
Alrighty.
definitely.
Cool.
All right.
Good.
Thank you.
Well, Ibram, thank you so much again for having me on. It's been a pleasure. And to all the future pilots out there, fingers crossed, thumbs, whatever. I hope I've got you covered, and I'm here to help you. And you will not regret your decision to go into the aviation industry. It is, for me personally, it's still one of the best jobs that you can get.
Definitely, I agree with you 100%.
Cool. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Then I'll see you again. Ta-da!
That's it for this episode. Thank you so much for taking the time. I really hope you enjoyed this and found it beneficial. Don't forget to check out Captain Joe's course on how to become a pilot. The link will be down in the show notes of this podcast. Also, don't forget to follow me on Instagram at firstgenpilot. That's 1st.gen.pilot. Also, follow Captain Joe on Instagram at flywithcaptainjoe. Anyways, aviators, until next time, keep the blue side up. We'll see ya.